In the summer of 1972, 25 years into the Cold War, two esteemed and decorated chess grandmasters sat down for the final match of the World Chess Championship. American-born Bobby Fischer stared down his opponent, Boris Spassky, with the intention of ending the 24-year-long dominance of Soviet chess players. Will you play as calm, cool, and collected Boris Spassky and attempt to rewrite history? Or will you pilot the ego-driven child prodigy Bobby Fischer to the finish and claim your title as champion in Match of the Century? Hey everybody, I'm Parker with Game Nerdz, and today I'm breaking down everything you need to know about Match of the Century from Capstone Games to help you decide if it's worth adding to your collection. I'll cover the turn summary, main mechanisms, target audience, and the estimated time commitment. But first, let's get started with the game objective. On the surface, Match of the Century may strike you as a board game about a board game, which would be absolutely wild. Imagine you pop the lid just to find a folded chessboard, chess pieces, and a rulebook on how to play chess. In reality, Match of the Century puts you front and center of one of the most historically significant chess matches, Sabretooth vs. Spider-Man. Liev Schreiber vs. Tobey Maguire. Boris Spassky vs. Bobby Fischer. That's a reference to the movie Pawn Sacrifice for the three of you that have seen it. In this 1v1 tug-of-war style game, you and your opponent will step into the shoes of either Fischer or Spassky and play cards from your deck to simulate short, high-intensity games of chess. As in a real chess match, you'll play a series of games. Each time a player wins a game, their king is moved one space forward toward the white king symbol in the center of the match track. The first player to reach this space wins the entire game. While that sounds simple enough, there's actually quite a bit of strategy involved. It can oftentimes feel like you're playing a card game rather than a board game, which can be great if you're into that sort of thing. To keep the historical record straight, whoever's playing as Spassky will start the game with the white queen on their side of the table, which indicates that they have the initiative. The white queen not only determines who takes the first play of the game, but also which side of the cards they'll play during this particular game. Alright, hold on. I know this is getting kind of confusing. Match of the Century is a game, but it's composed of multiple games to form a single match. So whenever I say whoever has possession of the white queen gets to begin the game, what I mean is they get to begin the game within the game. Got it? Alright, let's move on. Before drawing any cards, you need to refer to your mental endurance track to see how many cards you can draw and how many, if any, pawns you can move from the common supply to your personal reserve. The mental endurance tracker showcases the rigorous mental fatigue one might endure after many hours of playing chess, or trying to put a 2-year-old to sleep. Each deck is made up of 16 cards, which will serve as your chess pieces. Each card has two main sections. The first is the strength of the chess piece, which can range anywhere from 0 to 5. This represents the strength you will bring to the exchange that your opponent will need to beat. The second section is the effect of the chess piece. I'll tell you more about the effects in just a bit. When you play a card, you'll do so on the game board, which has 4 exchange sections for you to pick from, ranging from 1 to 4. You'll notice that the deck is made up of 8 white pieces and 8 black pieces. Whenever you have control of the white queen chess piece, you can only play cards with the white side up, pointing towards the center of the board. When not in control of the white queen, you can only play cards using the black chess piece sides. This ensures that you always have a card to play during each game in the match, even if it's not the most ideal. The person with the initiative plays a card onto any open exchange space on their side of the board. Each exchange awards the amount of advantage points shown in its section. For example, if you wanted to go straight for the highest amount of advantage points, you'd play your card into the space with 4 Roman numerals. It's at this point you may take up to 2 of your pawns from your personal reserve and add them to the empty spaces matching your color. Each pawn adds a value of 1 to the total of your card, easily turning your 5s into 7s. Your opponent then plays a card on their side of the board in the same exchange section. If they play a lower number than you win the exchange and slide the advantage token that many spaces down your side of the track. The 4 spot is especially grueling, so the winner of this exchange must also lower their mental endurance down 1 space, towards your side of the track. Since your opponent didn't win this one, they get to take advantage of the effect on the card they played. Some card effects are especially punishing, such as forcing your opponent to get -2 mental endurance, or discarding half of the cards in their hand. This opens up the possible strategy to intentionally lose an exchange so that you can take advantage of the effects on the card. In chess, this is known as a sacrifice, luring your opponent to take a certain piece so that they open themselves up to further vulnerabilities. If, however, you played a card with equal value as your opponent, nobody wins the exchange, no card effects resolve, and nobody gains advantage points.
And I'm not gonna play!
You simply move on to the next exchange space and try again.
I am quitting chess!
You may also decide to play a pawn, or be forced to if you have no other options in your color. But upon losing the exchange, you can choose to add a pawn to your personal reserve, or draw a card. This tug-of-war combat continues until there are no more empty spaces left to fight for, or it is not possible for one side to make a comeback. The person who has the advantage tracker on their side of the board wins that game and slides their king one space forward. The white queen piece is then given to the other player, thus giving them the initiative and informing them of the colored cards they can play during this game. The advantage tracker is placed back into the center of the track, and each player resolves their mental endurance by drawing the number shown and adding pawns to the personal reserve. There are even rewards for having high endurance, such as starting the game with an advantage, forcing your opponent to work especially hard to beat you. As soon as a player's king reaches the center space on the match track, that player wins the entire match and the title as the World Chess Champion. So having broken down the fundamentals of the game, let's talk about the target audience. I feel confident in saying that anyone could enjoy this game, not just fans of chess. As a matter of fact, I know very little about chess, but I kept coming back to this game for its simplistic strategy. It scratches that itch in your brain that feels rewarded for planning a step or two ahead. That said, if you are a major chess fan, this feels like a very strong tribute to one of the most historically relevant matches in modern chess. It weaves in familiar gameplay mechanics found in the classic card game War, but adds the polish of a skirmish-style trading card game with a splash of history. Just like in many other card games, there may be times you don't draw the best cards, and it can lead to some feels-bad moments. But those are far and few between. The ability to implement skill and strategy severely outweighs any moments where you may feel at the whim of variance. Match of the Century has been advertised as the spiritual successor of the 2019 hit Watergate. If you enjoyed Watergate or other tug-of-war style games like 13 Days, The Cuban Missile Crisis, and Blitzkrieg, you'll probably enjoy Match of the Century, especially if you prefer settling international conflicts on your table instead of a battlefield. Mechanically, Match is on the lighter end of the difficulty spectrum, though you will probably find yourself having to make agonizing decisions about which cards to play. Unless you're like Spencer, who just plays the cards that look the coolest.
I'm going to play Sportsmanship.
Match of the Century has a relatively small footprint. It's pretty portable, which means that you could play it in many types of environments, like coffee shops, living rooms, bookstores, cafes. You get the idea. You'll probably just want to stay away from noisy places or noisy people like Spencer.
That's one more for Spassky.
The publisher suggests an age rating of 10 and up, and after playing a few times, I'd say that can be lowered slightly. I can already envision my 8-year-old picking this game up and completely destroying me after a few playthroughs. That said, this game is heavily driven by strategy, so if you want the full mental experience, it's best to play with someone who can match your wits. And for my 8-year-old, that's probably Spencer. Finally, let's break down the estimated time investment for Match of the Century. You can expect to spend about 1.5 to 2 minutes setting up the game, and another 5 to 6 minutes for a first-time rules explanation. This game is about chess after all, so each player will probably want to spend some time thinking about the card they'll want to play. Because of that, each exchange can take anywhere from a minute to a minute and a half. Ultimately, that means you can anticipate each game to last about 4 to 5 minutes before resetting the advantage tracker and going on to the next game. The multiple games I played were over in about 20 to 25 minutes. Altogether, you should carve out about 35 minutes to set up, teach, play, and put away Match of the Century. Do you have desires to use skill, strategy, and big brain moves to become the world champion chess player, but don't want to leave the comfort of your kitchen table? Well, this game checks that box. If Match of the Century sounds like something you'd be interested in, you can find it at GameNerds.com. I'll leave a link to its page down in the description. Also, if you found this video helpful, consider leaving a like, and be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on more gaming content like this. Once again, my name is Parker, and I'll see you next time.